I want to walk you through, and I've made myself a little bit smaller here to walk you through a couple of ideas on the art of leadership while you are all being leaders in your field as well. And when it comes to leadership, I really like the words of Peter Drucker. He once said one thing. He once said, only 3 things happen naturally in organizations. Only 3 things happen naturally in organizations. And that is friction, confusion, and underperformance. For that, you don't have to do anything. But everything else requires leadership. Everything else requires leadership. And I think that one I've seen in my life, working with all different kinds of institutions, all different kinds of teams, leading teams and organizations, I've seen that to be true. So I want to explore with you a couple of ideas on leadership before you go on and have your big meeting and discuss further. When it comes to leadership, very often we have this superhero model of leadership. Like people go out, especially on social media, we can see these things like these leaders as super beings and so on. But I want to really propose a different vision here today, a much more practical vision. Because for me, fundamentally, leadership comes down to tools. And today I want to share with you a couple of tools for your toolbox, for your leadership toolbox here. Because fundamentally, I think leadership is all about tools, not rules. There's not this one way on how to do leadership. But all of us, where we can build our leadership further, need to have tools for our toolbox. And I want to share a couple of these tools together with you here this morning. So, what are these tools about? Now, leadership is a massive field, and we very often have, of course, all different kinds of things. Flexibility, coaching, drive, styles, empowering, productivity, all of these things are important. But today I want to zoom in on 3 special areas, 3 specific areas, and provide you 3 specific ideas on leadership. Number 1, and probably one of the most important things for all leaders in all fields, have a bold vision. Have a bold vision of what the future can look like. One of the core things of leadership. Now, John Maxwell once said, a leader is somebody who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. A leader is someone who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. Now, in this day and age, I would agree with probably 2/3 of that statement, because knows the way, I think, is a bit overstated, but goes the way and shows the way. I think these 2 areas are things that great leaders can do and should do. And all of us who are leaders in your field, for your cause, for your project and organization, I think that is something we should do. Now, when it comes about the way sometimes looks a little bit like this. It's not too easy probably to understand, what does the way look like? What is the way? And there I see leaders fall into 2 kinds of traps, so to speak. Sometimes people go into the trap of saying like, I have the nightmare, the way is so complex and everything's going down the drain and so on. And sometimes, the situation can be tough. But actually, it's very difficult to gather around people behind, so to speak, a nightmare. So one of the core things is painting a positive vision for the future. As difficult as it is, painting a positive vision for the future is one of the core things of what a great bold vision look like. Somebody once said, seeing the positive in a negative situation, that is naive. That actually is leadership. That is fundamentally leadership. That is gathering people around. The other thing that very often see, the other trap with a bold vision that I sometimes see, is that people go, I have a plan. We have a plan for the future, and this is what it looks like. We have that detailed chart with it. And very often you get this reaction like, whoa, what is happening here? Very difficult to follow around this. So for your toolbox, one of the key tools that is out there is to always, whenever you lead something, is to have your strategic intent ready. Whenever I work with leaders, that is one of the things that I ask them, what is your intent? Can you summarize in a couple of words, in a couple of sentences, what your intent is? And I push leaders to actually file out this sentence. The single most important thing that we must focus on is, and then fill in the blanks. Are you as a key leader, are you able to communicate that for yourself, for your organization, for your field? One of the key things for great leadership. And then, once we are able to do that, which is the what, or what it is we think needs to change, then we add the key. And that absolute key is that why. Because very often in leadership communication, that why is somewhere buried. It is clear for everybody why we need to do something. Well, everybody needs to know this. No, it's not. Very often that why is not absolutely clear. Why do we need a why? Well, somebody once said, the person with a why, the person who has a why can bear almost any how. The person who has a why can bear almost any how. And that's why it's so key to focus on these two things. Whenever I work with leaders, these are the two key fields, what they're trying to say in their vision. Like, can they communicate strongly, powerfully, persuasively the what and the why of whatever you built in this one. And then the how, maybe in brackets, but that it's sometimes so easy to focus on that how and to go into the nitty-gritty details, but it's very important as well to focus on that what and why. So that was tool number one. Tool number two, I think in this day and age, what great leaders should have in their toolbox is experimentation and to be able to experiment. Why do we need to have this? Well, let's look at the world from this model here. Do you operate, and in your field, in your environment, is it a static environment or is it a dynamic environment? And do we have a long operating history or a short operating history? So static environment, not a lot is changing. Long operating history, well, we've done that for some time. Maybe what one can do here is predict and plan in this kind of world. But this is not the world we live in at the moment, certainly not this year. And in general, very often we have in dynamic environments, things are changing, and we have very little operating history, with very little experience what is working well there. So what do we do in here? In here, maybe the words of Joseph Campbell are true. If the path before you is clear, you're probably on somebody else's path. If the path before you is clear, you're probably on somebody else's path. Which might be okay if you're following this and if you want to reapply this, but if you want to create your own path, maybe something else is needed. What is needed for that? Spaghetti, as I sometimes call it. It's not yet time for lunch, but I operate with something called the spaghetti principle. What is the spaghetti principle? Well, there are fundamentally 4 ways in the world on how you can tell that spaghetti are ready to eat. And maybe you're using one of these 4 ways. So if you cook spaghetti, there are 4 ways on how you can do that. You can time them. You can say, okay, 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, they're done. You can look at them. Some people say, okay, I look at them, I know they're ready. You can taste them, and that is good. Or a combination of these 3. But there's also a 4th method that some people use. I'm not advising this, but some people use that. That is, you can throw it to the wall and see if it sticks. And if it sticks, they might be ready or a bit over ready. I don't want to go into these discussions here as well. But this is, by the way, if you've never seen that, that's what it looks like. You throw it to the wall or to somewhere and see if it sticks. And I, of course, don't want to advise you to use that as your spaghetti cooking method, but much rather as a metaphor. As a metaphor for trying things out and seeing if they stick. And if they stick, we continue doing them. If they fall off, we stop them off. And because that is fundamentally in this environment here, in this area here, how we operate, how we test and iterate. We spaghetti it. We try out new things. Lots of us have tried out, of course, new way of virtual connection as well. Virtual interactions, virtual social interactions. But that is one of the key things, what great leaders do in this day and age. They test, iterate, and spaghetti it. Basically. And what I would recommend you to do is to bring in your field of leadership constant experimentation, to never get stuck in one field or one approach, but to constantly almost have a metric of trying out new things. I push myself every month to have one new experiment in my approach of interaction with teams, organizations, people. And having this and continuing to have this is, I think, one of the key things how great leaders can communicate and can operate in this world, and especially in uncertain worlds as well. If you want to dive further in this one, that is also what this book that was mentioned at the beginning is all about. If you see innovation that sticks, so to speak, how to make new ideas and so on stick. And that's what I would recommend. Idea number 3, have feedback and debate systems. Have feedback and debate systems. And here we now go one step deeper as well, because I think that is, especially in this day and age, what great leaders should have. Feedback and debate systems. Because if you put something into practice, we all know it's very easy, right? I mean, especially in pre-corona times and so on, you sit together. Today we would not be doing that, but maybe virtually and so on. But you work together, you have a plan. Then you do some work with Post-its and everything, and you work around this, and then you implement and happy, and that's how basically, that's how you lead stuff. That's how you lead your organization. That's how you lead stuff forward, right? That's how it goes, right? Well, maybe not. Maybe all of you who are experienced in change and driving things and leading people know that it's not that straightforward. It's not that easy. Basically, you propose your new idea, your new thought, and basically the first reaction is of people like, what are they proposing here? What are they doing? What is happening here? You get that skepticism. And sometimes if you want to push change forward, you literally get that resistance that you have to drag people out of the room, basically into making things happen. What has happened then there as well? Then people then go and say, okay, great, let's think out of the box here. Let's do something different. I don't know what is happening with these boxes, but we hear that statement all over the world. Let's think out of the box. And people think like there's something bad in that box. We have to get out of this one. Now, sometimes, and I think great leaders also stay in that box, but use these boxes in a very specific environment and a very specific field. So at some stage, I would recommend you as well to think inside the box. What are some of these developments? What are some of these? Let's look at one specific field, which I think is extremely important for all leaders. And that is feedback and praise. Whenever you lead a project, an environment, a team, whatever it is, you will come across the field that you will learn and need to exchange and interact. And there are two types of feedback is out there, or in total 4 types, 2 dimensions. One is it positive? Is it, so to speak, praise? Or is it maybe criticism, constructive criticism, whatever it is, so negative in a way. And then there's a second dimension. Is it solicited or is it unsolicited? Now, sometimes we have solicited praise, solicited criticism. Give me some feedback, please. So you'll solicit, you invite stuff in. And then people say, oh yeah, what's working well is this and this, and what isn't working well is that and that. That's already great. But what is also happening, of course, is the unsolicited sometimes. We have unsolicited praise that sometimes people go, wow, that was really great. And we have unsolicited criticism that everybody who leads encounters very often and very frequently. People come to you like, no, you can't do it like that. This is impossible. Now, why would you do that? Now, I fundamentally think there are 2 kinds of leadership problems out there. Leadership problem number 1 is we don't have enough unsolicited praise sometimes. Sometimes, and especially in a world that is fast changing, it is the leader's role to catch people doing something right. To even without that people have asked, go out and catch people doing something right and give some unsolicited praise as well. And I would say leadership problem number 2 is sometimes there's in some organizations, some teams, some environments, there's too much unsolicited criticism. And unsolicited criticism, even if you say like, well, yeah, just give me some feedback, is very often, it always has this, wow, there's somebody coming in and dropping some negativity on me. And that can have sometimes some issues as well. What is the solution to this? What can leaders do? Think inside the box here. And really, what is the idea? Set a box or framework for leadership feedback. One of the things that is in the background, but that great leaders can do, and especially in environments that are not structured yet, maybe, is set up a box or a framework for feedback. A feedback process where we give ourselves that very simple feedback where we've got praise and criticism. Simple feedback can be just like something like start, stop, continue. A very simple thing, just like start, stop, continue, can be very, very powerful. Just asking yourself, instead of like, give me some feedback, one can ask like, okay, next week what we'll do is we ask ourselves, can you give me what I should start doing, what I should stop doing, what I should continue doing? Simple framework for feedback. But when we do this, when we operate, I like the words of Margaret Heffernan. She said, for good ideas and true innovation and true change, I would add, you need human interaction, conflict, argument, and debate. And you will all know this, your fair share of this one, of argument and debate. Now, I think fundamentally as well, this whole field of debate is extremely important. And you're all versed in this, but I think the great leadership teams that I've worked in bring debate, not just discussion, but actually debate to all of their kinds of problems. And I think that is really almost a lost art. And I recommend you one talk to really on this, on the lost art of the democratic debate. And one framework, one box that people can install in their leadership environments is to have really that thinking of debate, pro and con, what speaks for, what speaks against a certain subject, and really have this also in your leadership meetings. So we had three short tools, three things, on top of everything else that, of course, great leaders need to do. Have a bold vision, experiment, and have feedback and debate. These are just three key areas that I would recommend you to do. But it all has also one thing, and I think that is where great leadership really, really also starts. I think fundamentally, great leadership starts with self-leadership. Leading yourself in a great environment is one of the most important and most powerful things. Great leadership starts with self-leadership. And whenever you lead something, I would recommend you to look at one field, one environment, and one question. And that question is something that I've once asked, that a leader once gave me once. It is whenever I endeavor or whenever I go out into a new field, I ask the question, how would the leader I would like to be do the things I'm about to do? How would the leader I would like to be do the things I'm about to do? That little question of self-reflection can, in times of where we have to engage, where we have to lead others, where we have to change others, can really do magic as well. So I would recommend you to not only continuously to build your toolbox, but also continue to work on that self-leadership while you go out and lead and change and drive action as well. And with that, I wish you a great start of the conference and a great conference outcome, conference results, and a great time together. Thank you very much.